Good morning, friends. It is good to gather with you today. It's the beginning of March, the beginning of Lent. We've had some tastes of spring this week, which has just been fabulous. It's been good to see that those reminders that spring is on the way. My little daffodil shoots are starting to poke up outside my window. And well, we'll still have some cold. March is always like that. It's just good to have that reminder that spring is coming. Well, we're in Lent now. That's the 40 days before Easter, not counting Sundays, because Sundays traditionally were feast days in a time of fasting, little reminders of Easter resurrection in the middle of the reminders of mortality. And this week, as we've started Lent, I've been popping into the devotions in our Lent study, Good Enough. And one that I read this week, I should mention for this study, we're encouraging you, if you want to read them in order, that's fine. Otherwise, pick one that calls out to you. Well, one that I was reading this week, it tells a story about laughter coming into a hospital room of a dying woman due to frozen meatballs, of all things. And it just spurred uproarious laughter. And the author is musing on the fact that there were people that day who were very taken aback by the laughter, as if laughter did not have any place with someone who was dying. And I found those reflections interesting, especially as we're in a week where we've had so much heavy news. And sometimes we find it hard to deal with the fact that our joys and our sorrows, the lightnesses and the heavinesses of life, they're all wrapped in together. So I just wanted to share just a little bit from this book about that reality that joy and sorrow coexist. And we see that in the life of Jesus in the Gospels, in times where Jesus shows up and meets a need, not just with what's needed, but with an overflowing excess that likely spurred some laughter in terms of just how bountiful and overflowing that was. One of the things that she shares in the devotional is, under the weight of our grief, our shame, our pain, or that of the world, we can convince ourselves that joy is the enemy, that to celebrate or feel happiness somehow mocks pain. But it's sometimes the opposite. Joy is the oxygen for doing hard things. And I found that a really fascinating thing to think about, because I know many of us have the situation with the Ukraine heavy on our hearts. We have other news situations that are coming out that they're heavy things. We may have our own personal situations that we're dealing with. And sometimes we do almost feel, or at least I sometimes do, that joy is that somehow if we let joy happen, that if we have a good laugh in the middle of that, somehow we're saying that the hard things don't exist. And that's not the case at all. It really isn't. Sometimes that laughter, that joy is exactly what we need to build us up, to sustain us, to make us ready to handle those hard situations. Now, this is going to seem like a complete segue that doesn't make any sense, but my refrigerator here, we have magnets on it. Every time we go on a family trip, we try to pick a magnet. So I grabbed just a couple of those today. Little reminders of the places we've been, and, most of those are just sort of normal scenery kind of things. We have a few inspirational magnets up there. And then one year for Christmas, I think it was Christmas, either Christmas or my birthday, in the middle of a really hard season, I opened one of my gifts and I just began to laugh. Because my family had gotten me for our refrigerator these little magnets of the rear ends of cats of lots of different colors to put on the refrigerator. So ever since then, these little cat rear ends live on our refrigerator, and sometimes they wind up stuck to the other magnets. And oh, look, here's a little cat traveling through Multnomah Falls. People put them in weird places, and they make me laugh every time I see them as I walk by, because they're just so silly. And so I'm wondering, are there things that you have that just make you smile every time you see them, that just make you laugh? Because that's one of the recommendations. That's our step from this particular devotion, is that when you're sinking under the weight of grief, or the fears and anxieties are just pressing in, it says, try on joy for a change. Turn on the music and dance in your kitchen. Plan a road trip to the world's largest disco ball, prairie chicken, and chest of drawers for no reason at all. Bake a cake and have a party celebrating that it's Tuesday. Drop a surprise note and treat on a friend's doorstep. Try a cartwheel in the yard. Yeah, some of us probably shouldn't do that, at least right now. Watch a show that makes you laugh. Ask friends to send you funny memes. Pull a lighthearted prank on your housemate. Little cat rear ends again. And I loved that thought and that reminder that sometimes we just need laughter. The author goes on to comment that one of the writers of this book is known to go to a thrift store, pick an old painting, and she paints like little dinosaurs and monsters in it, just as a way to do something completely absurd and silly. Now, it might be as simple as you wear something that you love, and you know the color combination clashes. You know nobody else will think it's lovely at all, but it makes you happy. It brings you joy. And so that's our invitation. That's our challenge today, is to just simply, when life gets rough, give ourselves and those around us the medicine of lightening the load. Now, little kids are great for this. Pets are wonderful for this. That's why if we spend any time on social media, almost always there's some kind of silly cat video or silly animal video, right? Because it's like taking a big, deep breath. And so I'm going to close this today with this prayer for finding joy in sorrow. God, I can't deny it, the way that sorrow catches up with me and forces me to pay attention. There is so much to grieve, so much to lament in the world, in my life, in the lives of those I love. You've shown me again and again that I can look sorrow in the face, take its hand and talk things over, because it shows me what I love. It tells me what I don't want to lose. And God, I love that you lead me into that tender space where I can see the sadness for what it is, and I can see also what makes me want to fight hard for what I love. We're in this together, so dance me through it. Let's find some light in this day. Lead me to where I feel closer to you in my sadness, and remind me that I never walk alone. Awaken me to the next step toward joy, so that what is a deliberate choice becomes a buoy, carrying me along a river of delight. Dance with me, God. Show me the pleasures and everyday loveliness of the world you created. Reveal what delights I can share and the sadness I can ease. And then do it again, Lord. Fill my heart with love for life and for others. And that's where it starts, right where joy and sorrow meet. Amen. One of my mentors is fond of saying that joy and sorrow play in the same sandbox. And I think for most of us, that's true. And there's a place to acknowledge both of those things. The place where things are hard, and the place where things bring us joy. So take those thoughts with you as you go into these days ahead. May Jesus meet you in those places, the places of sorrow and the places of joy. We'll see you on Sunday and then again here next Friday. Take care, friends, and go in peace.